Hello everyone and welcome to a very nice game from round 2 of the GRENKE Chess Classic 2019. If you've seen yesterday's game played between World Champion Magnus Carlsen and Young Vince here, you know that Young Vince didn't really have all that much time to prepare for the next game, as they played a 7-hour game, and it was really just it was really just torture. And when you face Carlsen for the first time in your life and you play an excellent game against him, and you somehow manage to lose because you, struggling in time trouble to choose between two options. One is the only one that doesn't lose, and the other one is the one that loses, but you just don't have enough time to see why it loses. And then you have to face former world chess champion Viswanathan Anand the next day with the black pieces. It's just it's just great. So without further ado, let's just check up on some of the photos we have and some footage from this round, both compliments of the GRENKE Chess Classic video team. So if you remember yesterday, we've shown this photo where where Young Vince is giving Magnus the stare. There you have it, the deadly Vince stare. You might think, okay, he had enough yesterday after facing Carlsen, but not really. Here is a photo from today. Here you can see Young Vince giving Anand the stare. And we also do have two very nice footages. There you have it. Here we have a nice footage of Anand, although it's not moving, so there seems to be something wrong with my OBS. So let me just try to refresh that. Nope, still not moving. Let's try it one more time. No, still just a photo of Anand, even though it's a video, but yeah, I guess it just happens. But we do have a nice short footage of Vince here. It's somewhere still in the opening, so still considering what to play, just to get in the mood. So there you have it. Now let's check out the game. So what do you play with the black pieces against Anand? Anand opens the game with e4, and you have c5. So Vince goes for the Sicilian defense. Knight to f3, we have d6 and d4 by Anand. C captures, knight captures, we have knight to f6, knight to c3, and here everyone was very eager to see what Young Vince will go for, and here he did go for a6. We have the Najdorf, and it's it's something you could characterize as brave, as you could characterize it as a lot of things, but as Anand is one of the world's greatest experts on the Najdorf defense alongside Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, it's definitely something you want to play against Anand, because you want to play him there where he is best. So Anand goes bishop to d3, we have e5 attacking the knight on d4, and now knight goes back to e2. We have bishop to e7 and both players castle, and here the game continues in a similar fashion as the one played between Nakamura and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave from the Altibox Norway Challenge in 2017. So knight to g3, taking control of the f5 square, bishop to e6, controlling the d5 square, preparing to push d5, and here knight to d5, not allowing black to push d5. We have bishop captures, pawn captures, and now just g6 by Young Vince. Of course, capturing the pawn is not possible. If you capture, then just bishop captures on h7, gets rid of the pawn, and then picks up the knight back. So not something you want to do. Here Vince goes for g6. It's the same idea as Maxime Vachier-Lagrave played against Nakamura in the Altibox Norway Challenge in 2017. And here we have c4. Now controlling the d5 pawn, and this is not a favorable line for black, as there is only one game in the database, and it is the one that we mentioned, Nakamura versus Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. And here in this position Maxime went knight to e8. He prepared f5, but Vince does not continue in this fashion. Here Vince goes knight b to d7. It's a new move, and now Anand is pretty much out of book, so he has to start playing real chess. So bishop to h6, a nice developing move, attacking the rook. Vince moves it, rook to e8, and now rook to c1, developing yet another piece. Bishop to f8, hoping to trade off the dark square bishops, but Anand is in no hurry, as his dark square bishop is an excellent piece, and Vincent's not so much at the moment, so he just moves it back. Bishop to g5, pinning the knight on f6. With h6 by Vince, bishop goes back to d2, and now comes a5. Here Anand goes b3, just strengthens his pawn center here. Pawn chain on the queen side also prevents a4, and with h5 by Vince. And here you can see that although black is doing fine here, there is this principle of not playing on both sides of the board, but it's a really old principle. I don't know which game is it. I believe it's Karpov versus Kasparov, where Karpov played on both sides of the board, and Kasparov said something like, this is not how you play chess, and then Kasparov really took great advantage of it. But then you see Alpha Zero playing chess, Alpha plays on both sides of the board, and everything is fine. So is it really a principle? It's hard to say. I guess like everything in chess, it's up for debate. But okay, Anand goes rook to e1, develops the last rook, and bishop now back to g7, as it's a much more useful piece there. h3 by Anand, and then now queen to e7, with perhaps ideas of pushing e4, bishop to e3, and now comes queen to f8. You could push this, but after bishop to c2, you're never getting your knight to the e5 square. If knight e5, just bishop here, pins this knight, and now all of your pieces are going after this e4 pawn. You're just going to lose it, and it's not there's not all that much you can do here. So after bishop to e3, we have queen to f8, and now comes queen to d2. We have h4 by Vince, kicking the knight back, knight to e2, and now comes knight to h5. And here Anand just remaneuvers the knight, knight to c3, and finally f5 by Vince. Here Vince is threatening f4. If he's able to do this, he will trap Anand's dark square bishop here, and now Anand can go about this in a few different ways. He can go bishop to g5, which happened in the game, but there is also the sneaky knight b5 idea, which allows f4, and then after bishop to a7, it's actually a very nice piece on a7. Even though it's really odd looking, it controls this knight, so you're not really going anywhere with it. If you go knight c5, bishop can just capture it and create a passed d-pawn, but Anand decides not to go for this. He goes for the more casual bishop to g5, just a nice bishop move, getting rid of this f4 threat, and also threatening the h4 pawn, which is quite a weak pawn. There's really no good way to defend it. Vincent does find a way to defend it. He goes a knight to f4, and it is a very nice idea. Because now if Anand captures, then bishop to h6. This was Vincent's idea, now lining up the bishop with the queen and the rook behind the queen. And now you don't really have a lot of options here. Knight captures on h3 is a threat. This would come with check, which would win the queen. e4 is a very strong idea. So here you would just basically have to move the queen and allow this win of the exchange after bishop captures on c1. So after knight to f4, we have bishop captures on f4 instead of h4. Of course, Anand doesn't go for this. E captures on f4, and now another nice idea where the f4 pawn cannot be captured. If you capture it, then just rook captures, and bishop captures on c3, wins the knight on c3, and of course the game. So after e captures on f4, we have rook to e6. A rook to e6 by Anand. A very nice rook lift. Now if black captures, Anand creates a very strong passed e6 pawn, and also the d6 pawn becomes very weak. So knight to e5 by Vince, bishop to e2. Anand doesn't allow the trade bishop for a knight, and only now rook captures on e6. We have d captures on e6, and now rook to e8. Vince finally brings his last rook into the game. And now queen to d5. For the moment defending the e6 pawn, but also threatening the b7 pawn. And here we have queen to e7. Here Vincent defends the b7 pawn, but also prepares to capture on e7, on e6. We have knight to b5 by Anand, now forcing a series of trades because, well, d6 is just weak. Here we have queen captures, but now queen captures on b7. Rook to e7, attacking the queen, and here Anand just goes queen b8 check, king has to go to h7, and now queen captures on d6. Queen captures, knight captures, and now bishop to f8. And here you can see that Anand is up a pawn, 6 pawns to Vincent's 5, and Vincent also has a doubled f pawn. So Anand's position is much more enjoyable, and it is very easy to play this position. Anand just has to play a3, b4, and he already has 2 connected pass pawns on the queen side. So a very tough endgame for Vince. Knight back to b5 by Anand. Now comes knight to c6, and now king to f1, just defending that bishop as Vincent was threatening to capture it. Rook to e5, and now comes a3, just preparing that b4 move. The knight is protecting the a3 pawn, so there's no danger of losing it. Bishop to c5 by Vince, and now bishop to f3. the most precise idea, threatening to capture the knight here. You're asking where is the knight gonna go. You can go back, but it's hard to say if this is one of those cases where knight, a move with the knight back is the strongest move. Here Vincent goes knight to d4. He allows the trade. Knight captures with bishop captures, and here rook to b1. Here b4 is now prepared. We have rook to e6 by Vince, now preparing to meet b4 with rook to b6, but Anand doesn't mind. Everything is calculated precisely. b4, we have rook to b6, and now comes rook back to d1, attacking the bishop here. Vincent moves it with bishop to b2, attacks the a3 pawn, and here just c5. And it was actually in this position on move 43 that young Vince resigned the game. So it took Anand twice as less moves to win a game against Vince than it took Carlsen, but Carlsen did have the black pieces. And it's hard to say, was Vince tired after yesterday's game against Magnus, or was he just maybe feeling overconfident because he lasted so long against Carlsen that he went down this fast against Anand? But it's just an amazing game by Anand that he was able to take down Vince so fast. And I mean, why did he resign? Of course, you have to do something about it. Your rook is under attack. Once you move it, let's say rook b8, you get rook d7 check, and now your the path for this pawn is pretty much clear. King will move, and now b captures on a5. You can even mess up your pawn structure. Bishop captures, and now just c6. Bishop to b4, attacking the a5 pawn. Now just a6. Bishop to a5, taking the c7 square, but now just a7. And after rook to e8, here you would just have to be careful not to mess up with something like c7 and allow rook to e1 checkmate. This would be very unfortunate, but if you play something like g3, just creating a square for your king, then everything is perfectly fine. Then just, let's say, captures, you can go c7, and now after rook e1 check, you will move, g captures on f2, king captures on f2, rook back to e8, and now finally you will bring a queen into the game. Black will have to give up the rook, and then black will have to give up the bishop, and you will have an easily winning endgame. But of course, both Anand and Vincent saw this, and after this very nice c5 move by Anand, Vincent simply resigned the game. So yeah, a tough two games, first round and second round against the world champion and former world champion Viswanathan Anand for young Vincent. It was a very eventful round, and it's still not over as I'm recording this. A couple of games are still being played, so we will not discuss the standings, as I will be showing at least one more game from round 2 of the GRENKE Chess Classic 2019. And let me just check for the last time, is this video going to move, or is it still just going to be a still image of Anand? I have no idea why this is happening. It's very strange, since this is a video, this is not a photo. But okay, I mean, it's still a nice photo. But yeah, that's the game. A very easy victory for former world champion Viswanathan Anand against young Vince. So we'll see how Vince fares in round 3. It's a tough tournament for him. He's 300 rating points lower rated than pretty much everyone in this tournament, and you know, normally for everyone in this tournament doesn't want to score below 50%, but for him, I would think 50% is the dream here, although it will not be easy. But you know, it's a very interesting event, so very interested to see what will happen next. And also, if any of you are fans of Game of Thrones, you know, do share your thoughts in the comments below. What are you expecting that will happen in episode 2, as I'm also waiting to check that out today. So yeah, I would like to thank Tucker Sjoblad, Sandra Bokhorst, Unmesh Dixit, Chris Picard, and Bradley Beatty for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon with some more, hopefully, interesting content. We're continuing the GRENKE Chess Classic coverage, and I would definitely recommend checking up the 2 links in the description below. First one is an interview with Magnus Carlsen from after his yesterday's game against Vince. It's really an amazing interview by the GRENKE Chess Classic video team. And the second one is impressions from day 1. A lot of amazing video footage. Do check that out as well. Both links will be in the description below. The first 2 things you will see, so do check it out. Thank you all. Have an excellent rest of your Sunday, and I will see you soon. And happy Easter, everyone.